This week on Barbell, Dad, we can talk to Kane.
Is he funny?
Yeah.
Barbell Shrugged is brought to you by you. To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe here with Doug Larson, Chris Moore. We have CTP behind the camera. We are in Anaheim, California. The secret location.
Right next to Disneyland.
Oh, you gave it away. And we're here for the CrossFit Games this weekend, and we're just hanging out. And I got to meet Kane yesterday.
Yeah, bud.
What's up, man?
Boom. Cheers,
And,
guys.
from you might know him from Kenny Kane's Positivity Project,
Boom.
which is a legit podcast. I will admit, on the front end, I have not listened to a lot of them, but the few that I've picked out were gems.
Thank
They're
you.
fantastic.
Cheers, man.
And we got talking yesterday, and you got a lot of stuff going on, not just a podcast. I was like, oh, this guy needs to come on the show
Yeah, dude.
for sure.
Cheers.
Yeah. Before we go any further, make sure to go to barbellshrug.com, sign up for the newsletter, and CTP will send you only interesting emails.
No dick pics.
In addition to that, if you want
Wait, do you guys get dick pics?
Oh, well, we got actually a pretty good one the other day.
Seriously?
I didn't see that.
Oh, no. Now people are going to start sending them.
Let's clarify. We don't want your dick pics. We're just commenting.
That was my question. Was it solicited?
No.
Absolutely not.
Come on, don't send them.
We're
Seriously?
all sitting around Barbell Shrugged headquarters. Like, man, you know what? This day would make this day much better if we get some dick pics in our email accounts.
I did get a dick pic one time on accident, and I ignored it over
this was
text.
great. Yeah.
And then I ignored it, and then he texted me again, and I ignored it again, and finally the guy called me like an hour later.
Dude, did you get my picture or what?
I'm like, hello? And he goes, yo, is Tina there? And I was like, nah, man, you got the wrong number. And you could hear it in this voice. He was like, oh. I feel like he realized just what had happened.
You go, but nice dick, dude.
Also, if you're wondering how you can support the show, there's a little shop button on the website. You can click that and check it out. And we have the 21 Easy Tips. 21 Easy Tips? What do we have?
We're talking about dick pics and tips.
Yeah, right.
What do
Back
we
to
have?
back.
21 tips.
That was such a great segue. Yeah.
It's not a movie.
21 tips.
He's talking about a webinar that we did a
21
while
just
back
the tips.
called the 21 easy tips to clean and snatch more weight. So it's kind of like the 8 snatch mistakes video that Mike did with Rich Froning, just expanded a little bit. So if you want to check out that webinar, you can go to the top right corner of the website. Yes.
Doug with the save. Nice job.
Saved it.
Yes. It's not a porno. It's something we made.
Nothing
It's
to do
supposed to
with
be
dicks.
educational.
It does have the word snatch in the title, but
Yeah.
But if you have Doug's number, be free to send him a dick pic. Exactly. And then ask for Tina.
It was great. So we do something called a muscle gain challenge, and we have a road to regionals. We have 2 programs where athletes can come be coached by Barbell Shrugged, and there's a lot of questions around, which program is right for me? Where do I fit? What do I need to do for training? All this stuff. So we don't answer the emails that come through. You can feel free to email help@barbellshrug.com. But we have a woman, Elise, who checks that email. And somebody sent a picture of themselves.
To her.
It's like the question and then the picture of himself. Like, what do you think? Like, which one should I go into? The picture went fairly low, and she was like, I think someone sent me.
they're naked?
Almost naked. Like, it was like, everything, it was like right to the penis. And she was like,
You see the bottom of the shaft in the picture.
Yeah.
She was like, who should I forward this to? We were like,
Nobody.
So there was no pre-qualification. It was just a picture and them going.
Yeah, there was like it's like a paragraph. Like, I don't know which program to do. Picture. I was like, all right. It was a good laugh. It was fun. We appreciate it, whoever you were.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, do not send us pictures of your genitals. We're not interested in that. If we want to see genitals, we'll just go to porn like normal Americans. We'll go find porn. Just what we want. Just what we're looking for.
So we brought Kenny on, and the thing is like, I don't know exactly what we're going to end up talking about because the few hours we've got to spend together so far collectively, it's been nonstop conversations. Right. So this can go pretty much anywhere.
There's that, and there's the side issue of we don't ever plan anything.
There's that other thing.
Right.
So you've been coaching. You've been coaching what since '84? You said '89.
Yeah, I mean I'm 43 now, so effectively my first coaching started in '84. I was getting my black belt in '84, '85. So I was a teenager at a dojo teaching adults.
You had seen Karate Kid. You were ready to take your training to the next level.
Exactly. And so I got my wax on and wax off there, and that's where I got my coaching chops. Is when you're a teenager and you got to teach adults how to fight, the first thing they want to do, and Doug will probably attest to this, when it's time to spar, an adult's going to want to kick the crap out of a teenager. So I learned as a kid. I had to learn as a kid to kind of hold my own as an instructor, and then through the years, through my teen years, as a martial arts instructor, soccer coach, and then I grew up in the fitness industry. My mom's business was a swim and tennis club that had like fitness too. So she didn't have any trainers. And back in the 80s, it was sort of an industry. And so she said, hey, I've got a bunch of members that need coaching and training on how to use the universal machine, which was back then this machine that could do about 15 things.
The lat pull down.
Yeah, the lat pull down, the quad extension, the hamstring curl. You could flip it over, bench press on one side and then flip it, and then do squats, sitting on the bench and squatting this thing upside down. And so that was my first
squat. First, get upside down.
Exactly. Feet nowhere near the ground. So that was my first exposure to sort of training. And then I went to school at UC Davis, where I played soccer and ran track and did a lot of hip hop shows. Back then I learned
hip hop shows.
Yeah, man, I learned hip hop by watching Yo MTV Raps.
You're an eclectic
Red DMC
dude.
outfit and shit. And
What's that? Oh, dude, I had the Hammer Dookie pants. I had Zodiac patent leather shoes.
Adidas jacket and big ass gold
chain. Is there a
chain?
picture of this somewhere?
There's got to be
need
pictures.
it.
Yeah. But they're not digital. So there's actual photographs of me in the Hammer pants. And back then, do this right.
I feel like we need to borrow some of that for Burning Man.
So, I still have a couple, and you guys could go as the Barbell Shrugged Dookie Pant crew. Do it. Just come to the closet next time.
I'm not opposed to this.
Totally.
I'm in.
So then I kind of self-taught myself hip hop, and back then, like, white guys didn't sort of dance, and so all the martial arts sort of taught me how to.
Are we dancing yet?
We're always dancing. Come on.
Is this on your resume still? Like 1984 is on your LinkedIn account. Self-taught hip hop professional.
Yo MTV Raps.
Very experienced with Adidas jackets and Run DMC tunes.
Right.
1984 to 1989.
Totally, man. So yeah. Then through college, played soccer, ran track, and then post collegiately, I ran a thing at Davis called the UC Davis Aggie Pack, which became the sort of template for all universities for their athletic promotions. So I was huge. I've always been a huge sport junkie, and I've always been enthused by just the element of sport. Like I feel that it's such an elemental, critical component to human existence, and without it, society collapses. Like I honestly believe that. So. This thing that we did, like thousands of college kids, like Davis had no spirit at all. And then me and a couple other kind of like crazies got together and go, all right, we're going to start getting people to the games and the events. And pretty soon there would be like 300 people. And then that became, 3,000 people. And then it became 5,000. And it started growing. And then just like you guys, I mean, the network starts to grow, right?
Yeah.
The economy starts to grow. And then, sponsors are wanting a piece of the action. Then all the other major universities and professional sports teams in the Bay Area started borrowing all of our athletic promotions.
Keep the hot chicks away. You can't beat them off with a stick. That's been our experience.
It's amazing.
You gotta wade through piles of just tens, California tens everywhere. Just get out of here. We're trying to do a podcast about lifting weights.
I like how you took the breaststroke through the bras.
Breaststroke and like get all these girls out my way, son.
It's a much more preferable stroke than the butterfly through the ladies. So good. So then from there, I went on to be a PE instructor and drama coach at a K-8 school, and then ran post-collegiately, competed in soccer post-collegiately for a couple years each, and at sort of like sub-national class levels. And And then from there, just kind of carried on. I moved down to Los Angeles, started stand-up comedy while I was a teacher, and traveled the world doing stand-up comedy for the better part of 10 years. And recently retired just because of the coaching. I mean, I've always been coaching, but it was just too much to try to balance both. And I got really exhausted by sort of the entertainment industry and really...
Well, I think there's two hardest jobs in the world. The first one I always say is, if you're going to be a professional chef, like, I want to go to cooking school. I mean, good luck, motherfucker. That's the hardest job you can possibly have. You can work all the time, cooking always. And it's stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is
like they want you to do your job or something.
Like every time I hear a heckler, like we're at a show the other day, and there's always this guy who wants to talk shit to a guy who their job, or gal, their job is to get up in front of a room of people who don't know them. And they're expecting to be entertained and made to laugh, and you got to get up in front of them and fucking deliver right on time, right when they say, right when they're expecting. They start talking shit to you. Right. And to be able to masterfully work a crowd of 100 people, 10,000 people, whatever it is, it's a powerful thing to be able to achieve, man.
That's why I fell in love with stand-up. I mean, I was always pretty successful at the things that I'd chosen to do. And then I went to my first open mic, and I've been on a microphone since I was a kid. So like being in front of large crowds, small crowds, being on a mic has never intimidated me. I'm almost more comfortable on a mic than anywhere else. Yeah. But the first time I did stand-up comedy was the first time that it was a true gut check. It was October 7th, 1996. I was in a room called King's X in Oakland, California. There was 2 homeless people. 3 people were...
Did you make them laugh?
No.
Like, who is this fucking guy?
So much shit. And immediately... I was drawn to it just because of the complexity and the difficulty. I had presumed that it was going to be easy. I'm like, oh, I'm Kenny Kane. I've been doing this. I've always been the funny guy. I get on the mic.
You grew up the funny guy. Mm-hmm. You're like, I'll get on stage. I'll just do the same thing. I'll tell the same stories.
Totally.
People will connect and they'll laugh.
Do you think it's like when the guys watches UFC, like, I could throw a fucking punch. I could fight this guy.
Chris?
No, you can't, man. No.
Dude.
What a mistake.
100%. And it took years. And I learned from a lot of comedians who've been doing it for forever that, like, listen, it's not till the amount of years that you've been doing it, 12, 13, 14 years, that you develop
it's like the 10,000 hours.
It's completely
Same
that.
Thing. Mm-hmm.
And it was because of the difficulty of it that I got immediately attracted. And then, when I started, I was still a school teacher, still competing post-collegiately in track. So I had like a full-time occupation. I'd train twice, sometimes 3 times a day. And I was I didn't give stand-up too much time. And then in 2000, I had a career-ending injury, and I was running at best at a very mediocre level at that point anyway. So as an old mentor once taught me, breakdown leads to breakthrough if you let it. And so that was the thing that I needed to kind of go, cool, now I can go kind of harden the paint and go chase a comedy career. And so I moved to San Francisco where there's an amazing comedy scene, and just hustled. Every night I was on stage. I would perform at laundromats, I'd perform at coffee shops, I'd perform in front of homeless people, and I just hustled.
Is what people forget this key step in success.
Oh, dude, it was just, it was relentless.
No one skips this step. They don't give a shit how lucky you think they are.
Relentless. Every single day I'd get up, I'd go to Pete's Coffee in West Portal in San Francisco, and I would write for 2 hours. And it was like a habituated habit. Then I would record every single set, audio and visual, go through the notes, take notes.
You would record it in the coffee shop?
No.
Like,
that would be awesome.
Up, talking to yourself?
Totally. No, I'd record the shows from the night before.
This guy thinks he's real funny. He's just sitting in the corner telling jokes.
He's saying, Michael, he'd go back and analyze himself, you see. Study himself.
In San Francisco, people wouldn't even think twice. If some guy was like,
oh, there he is.
Talking to himself.
Like, sitting in the corner of a coffee shop. It's exciting to be here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, in this coffee shop. Ladies and gentlemen, wait staff. I'm here all night talking to myself. It's crazy, son.
So there was a lot of that, and it was just grind and hustle, and then I started. That non-paid work became paid work, and before you knew it, I was doing gigs in Wyoming and Montana. And
so you didn't go to a comedy club and be like, I've been working on my shit now really hard for 2 weeks, and I think you ought to put me in a headlining spot tonight in the club.
It was
that doesn't happen, does it?
1,300-mile trips for $100, and I'd perform in buildings with bullet holes in the ceiling in Wyoming. And I remember one time I was driving to Utah to do shows, and I was driving across Interstate 80 across the Salt Flats. And I broke down. I had no money. The guy that was supposed to put me up that night, the place fell through, and I realized yet there was another night that I was going to have to sleep in my car. And I'm there in the Salt Flats, and there was a Walmart that I pulled into. and I had
That must be a really not very great Walmart.
It was a bizarre memory. I go in and I buy the No Doubt CD, right? There's a No Doubt CD.
Tragic Kingdom?
Yeah, Tragic Kingdom. So I buy that and I started crying in my car, realizing what the fuck am I doing?
I just bought a No Doubt CD. This is rock fucking bottom, man.
And I'm a grown man crying in my car next to the salt flats. Like, this is horrible, you know? But those are the kind of things that nobody sees, you know? But I look back at that experience and I go, man, if I can get through crying on the salt flats, I can get through anything. And then so, you know, enough trials and miles, you start getting good, you start polishing your craft, and then, you know, and then it became part of the 1%, the part of the 1% of the stand-up comedy population that supports themselves off of stand-up. And what I realized when I got to that sort of tier is right when I got there, and was at the same time that I became a father, and I had been 2009, 2010 as my daughter was born. I'm like, I've got to retire from this, because that insatiable hunger that I had to do any gig, anywhere, for any amount of money was expired. And all those years of being an athlete, stepping into the moment, performing optimally at your best, or laying an egg, having your worst moments, being exposed in front of crowds of people and your friends, your family, it all sort of came together. And I realized that, like, authentically, what I really, really was moved to do was continue coaching and be the greatest coach that I can possibly be. And so I realized that stand-up was the greatest gift for me, because it taught me, how to be in front of a room of people that are learning movement and be engaging to them. But more importantly, it taught me the value of being truly authentic in any movement, any moment.
Yeah,
as a comedian, how do you handle those failures? Like, if you're a weightlifter, you go out there, you lift a snatch, you get a little wobbly, you drop it, and then you kind of just go, all right, and then you walk off.
I tried my best.
Everyone claps for you anyway, but like, if you bomb a joke, everyone just stares at you like that was terrible.
You're the biggest asshole in the world.
That is, it's the most awkward. I'll tell you, I told Mike this story off air yesterday, but this is the most awkward thing that's ever happened to me. In 2004, I went to Iraq to perform for the troops, and we actually did a 13-country tour. I came back, and right before the trip, my girlfriend had broken up with me, and it was a horrific breakup. I mean, this was the girl that I was going to marry. So it's so traumatic. I'm getting on an airplane to go to Iraq, which in 2004, in the fall of 2004, it was hot. I mean,
no, thank you.
There was a lot of action. And so the first day that we're there, we're traveling to this remote place, and we're actually in Afghanistan the second day. And this 55-year-old colonel is like, all right, we're going to give you the Kevlar vest and the helmet. Now we're going to drive through some very unsafe areas. The Taliban is in the mountain range adjacent to this area that we're traveling through. Now what happens is these buggies pretend that they're broken down on the road. And usually when that happens, we start taking fire. And I'm just like, dude, like, I'm just here to tell jokes. I'd really prefer not to be.
Where are we going to put all that fire? Oh, you mean bullets? Oh, shit. Oh, fuck. They're going to shoot at us?
Right, so now, this is just it starts to mess with your mind, right? And so then we start to do the tours. And the really cool thing about doing these sort of Armed Forces Entertainment USO tours is that you get to meet the troops in a very vulnerable way. And the thing that always hit me the most was going to the hospitals where, you know, to see the guys and gals that had been blown up on the road. Now, one of the hospitals we went to also had some Iraqi children that had been knocked up by some of our stuff. So you see something like that, and that juxtaposes like these philosophical, political views that I hold. That simultaneously, then you're seeing like, this is as real as it gets. Like, children, super vulnerable, not having any part to do with any of this, and then you get to see. They would, in our hospitals, they would take care of the Taliban, who were also, they drive a suicide mission and survive it, which is literally hell to them that they didn't get killed in their mission. So you've got a Taliban person, some Iraqi kid that's been torched, and then, some of our guys and gals that have had shrapnel go through at these very obtuse angles.
And then it's you at the foot of the bed going, 2 men and a rabbi walking to a bar. Whoa, is this thing on?
Dude, and that's exactly it. You captured it, Chris, because your mind, you're trying to, that's our job, to go in there and bring levity. And all of us are just like, it makes your knees wobbly, man, because you're just dealing with all this. So now I come back to the States. I get this huge gig. It's for the Improv on Melrose in Hollywood. And it's basically a trial for the Tonight Show. Now, on that particular night, Seinfeld had just come back. He was polishing his act. Like, he had retired. He's getting his show together. The following week, he was going on Letterman to perform. I go on stage. This is my first time back in America. My ex-girlfriend at this point shows up. My mom shows up because I'd been in Iraq and all this crazy stuff had happened. And so I'm on stage and I'm like, with one of the biggest, this is one of these opportunities. Like, okay, dude, we're throwing a fastball. Let's see what you got. It's the ninth. Let's take a crack at it, man.
Mm-hmm. This is your big break.
I lay the biggest egg. I get on stage and all these emotions just start coming to me because I literally, because I look at my ex in the thing and then the memory of like the Iraqi kid that's got like basically a burn victim. And I just start crying, so I'm on stage at a comedy club crying in front of Seinfeld. Right. So now the audience is like, they start like, it's the most
Seinfeld's
awkward.
like, this guy's not very funny.
So now the audience turns into a thing. It's like a 12-step program. Like they're like, they don't know what to do because you guys have been to shows where it's awkward on stage. I made it as awkward as could be. Right. So they're they start like cheering like you can do it. So they're trying to cheer me on, right? Just get through it. We believe, it was.
No way.
This is fucking terrible, man.
It was horrible, dude. I get off stage, I had one buddy, Adam Richmond, he's a great stand-up comedian. He busted my balls. He goes, "What the fuck was that?" And then everybody else is like hugging me, like I just done some therapeutic thing. Like, it's okay, you're gonna be okay. And my mom. Now listen, my mom, it loves me more. My mom will kill you. She'll knife you. My mom is the most competitive person you've ever met. And I know you guys only pretty much interview people that are highly competitive and highly competent. I'm telling you, my mom will dwarf anybody that you've ever had on the show with her competitive.
Should we bring her on?
You got to bring my mom on. Dude, my mom is an 80-year-old lion who will knife you, dude. She is no joke. She was a world-class swimmer, and she's got the best kinetic eye that I've ever seen. She can break down. She doesn't know all the different sports, but she'll go, "Okay, Doug, and your hook, this is where you're losing power." And you're like, "80-year-old lady, have you ever?" And she goes, "Easy." And then
your hands you a meatloaf sandwich. Eat this, son. You look skinny.
She's such a badass, right? So she got off, and she hates seeing me lay eggs like that. And so Adam Richmond and my mom started laying into me. And you think that it's mom, and she's going to be like, "You're going to be okay." And she's like, "If you ever do that again, I'm never coming to another comedy show again." Oh my God. So, I've learned a lot of incredible lessons from my mom. I got my kinetic eye for coaching people from her because I learned at an early age. She just she would coach us. In the 80s when women didn't coach anything, she'd just be like, "Oh, I'm going to coach your team because the head coach had a family emergency for the season and has got to go take care of a relative in Seattle. I'm going to coach a team." Now, where I grew up, we had the best soccer players in the entire country, right? Yeah. So she's coaching us to championships, and she had never played soccer, but she was just such a great competitive mind that she just analyzes, how do I win? And then she goes, what do I need these players to do? What do I need the human body to do to extract that result? So she's very extraordinary, but her expectation for performance is unparalleled. I remember I told her when I was in high school, I'm like, "Yo, Mom, I want to be a stand-up comedian." And I was student body president, and I was captain of the soccer team, all this stuff. And in her view, it's just she literally said, "No, you don't. You want to be president or at least senator." That's her level of expectation, right? Yeah. So anyway, the point is my mom busted my ass after weeping in front of the crowd. And she's like, "Don't ever do that again." So that was this awkwardness that can happen in stand-up comedy.
I don't know if anybody's ever really good at what they do, though. They haven't had a moment that was just so really painful and embarrassing. You look back on it and your whole body just quivers and shakes. Dude, you're right there again.
I think back at that's the worst.
You can't just have everything shake out just as you plan. If you went up, no one just kind of breezes through the early stages of developing a career like that and gets a big opportunity and sees Jerry Seinfeld in the front row and just fucking crushes it the first time through. Right. We're so critical of ourselves, and inside your own intense critic, you think that you're the only one who's ever struggled. But every person that ever grab a microphone has these moments that are terribly embarrassing.
Absolutely.
You're just seeing Jerry Seinfeld's highlights.
Right.
You haven't. He's surely gone through a moment where that was just so terrible. How am I ever going to make this show happen?
If you watch the documentary Comedian, it shows him going through that awkward process.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it. I haven't watched it yet.
It's an amazing. As you guys are all coaches. I mean, it's like really effective to see, like, to get the insight. And again, Doug, back to your question, like how to deal with that. I mean, that is something that is in the psychology of stand-up comedy. There's two directions. There's two roads that you can ultimately take. And once you find your voice, it's going to go one way or the other, in my view. And that is that you're going to go down this very neurotic view where you're completely associated with the result that you're trying to yield. In other words, you're married completely to audience response. That, in my view, is a very, very dark path.
It's like when you only think of what you're going to get out of your training, not the process. Like, I'm not worth anything till I snatch what that guy snatches.
Exactly.
Same kind of thing.
And if you're not in the process, richly thinking about the process orientation, and you're only thinking about the product, that will rob you emotionally. And that's one of the reasons why I retired from stand-up, is I saw myself, I've got a lot of emotional tools to deal with life positively. Yet there were things, there were behaviors that I was starting to modulate into my life that were fire in the hole.
Damn it, Ian.
It's just electronics.
What are you doing?
That's all. Just a laptop. Don't worry about it.
There was parts of my life where I started going, man, I'm going to go down that dark road. And if I don't unglue and modify career orientation, this is going to be me going down that road. And so it was a very intentional choice to leave stand-up. Now, the other one is to deal with it with neutrality. Like, you have a good show, you have a bad show, bad show, it doesn't matter, and take more of a Zen approach. And the handful of guys that I know that can do that day in and day out are the guys that are ultimately the most successful, and even more importantly, the most happy. And if you go down just going, I got to kill, I got to crush, because what happens is your manager and agent, your team goes, okay, well, the next we need Comedy Central. Okay, now we need HBO. Okay, now you need the movie. Now that movie was a flop. Now you need this. And it's like,
ultimate carrot and stick.
When does that end? It doesn't.
Never.
And when is it about process orientation? And by the way, we live in a content-driven society now that is insatiable for you to generate material. Now, in the stand-up world, generating quality content takes years. Yet nobody has the understanding that it takes a maturation process. We see things on YouTube. We consume all of it for free, primarily, which as an artist is like very frustrating, but that's a whole nother side point. But we see it. And then you go to see the stand-up. It's like, I saw this on YouTube. It's like, fuck, you have no idea how difficult it is to produce.
I heard Joe Rogan talk about, he was mentioning that somebody was doing a podcast. I think this was the context where, like, every week they were committing to doing like 5 minutes of material.
Right.
And when I heard that, I go, oh, we can blabber on a microphone for a long time. For 3 hours we needed to just telling dick jokes and just doing this and that and the other. I was like, 5 minutes doesn't seem that long. And he quickly calibrated me. He's like, that is so intense. Like, every week you commit to doing 5 minutes of something that you want people to hear.
Right.
And then you get a perspective about how a comedian should write and how much care they take. There's if there's 5 lines of text,
right,
every word is being so painfully. If you can imagine writing a paper in school, like 10-page paper, it's hard. It's hard. Right. Summarizing that into a 1-paragraph abstract that is well written, one little summary, tell me what I need to know, super intense. Writing a joke that makes a room laugh, just fucking 3 lines of text. You have to so painfully go over every element, every nuanced bit of timing.
Right.
If I add 1 millisecond of delay after this word, it goes from funny to extra funny. Or if I don't have it, it goes from being really funny to not fucking funny at all.
Right.
It's insane the amount of detail goes into it.
And it's weird. And there's that expectation of dance monkey dance because you're a comedian, which is like, I would always get on airplanes and I learned from a comedian who'd been doing it for years. He goes, if you get on an airplane, never make the mistake of telling the person next to you that you're a comedian.
Oh, yeah.
Simply say you're an accountant. Because it's like,
I've met a lot of accountants on planes.
Totally. Totally. And so
I could have been amused the entire time. I didn't even know it.
Do they instantly say, tell me a joke?
And it's that endlessly.
Every time?
And this happened, I retired a couple of years ago, and it's funny because were you guys at the banquet, the Grid League banquet a couple weeks ago?
I was.
Okay, were you there when I had to do the joke?
Yeah.
Okay, so Tony Budding.
You didn't know that was happening?
I had no idea that was happening. Yeah. And so Tony, and again, I hadn't. I was at a table and they were asking me about my experience about stand-up comedy, and I was like, one of the hardest things is the dance monkey dance experience. Not more than 3 minutes later, a fairly tipsy Tony comes over to me.
Tell a joke.
And he goes, hey, man, I'm going to get this thing going, but I want to. And he's already on the microphone. So there is no out.
He's announcing it. As he's asking you. He's asking you in front of everybody.
Yeah, so it's not an ask.
500
it's
people.
It's like, this is, you're one of my analysts, by the way. This is what you got to do right now. And I'm like, you got it. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, dude. Because, listen, I've been in a million situations. I can improv a million situations and, nailed it.
Oh, you did
pulled
great.
A little bit and whatever.
As soon as you grabbed it, I was like, well, this is entertaining. Like, just the delivery.
Right.
Not even the content. Just like, it's like, oh, this guy's a professional.
But the thing is as a stand-up, that Steve Martin said it best. He goes, distraction is the enemy to comedy. What we're trying to do as comedians is convey spontaneity. And so, like, if you're masterful at that, you can make people feel like that moment is authentic, and you're also living that moment authentically, even though you've been through it 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. So, like, Tony hands me the mic, man, and I'm just like, and I just told that story, and thank God, like, I had something in my toolbox, and I would have improv something else, but it's one of those situations where you're like, man, I intentionally got away from that career so I don't have to do that anymore. And ironically, my fitness world like came together with my comedy world, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not getting out of this.
What joke did you tell? I'm fucking done.
It was
Tell us a joke.
It was a
Dance monkey.
It was just a
stone cold silence in 5 seconds, right? Don't laugh at this motherfucker.
3, 2, 1, awkward. It was just a physical bit that I had done from my act from years ago, but it was everybody from the grid league, so I knew that it was gonna like basically
it was gonna land.
Yeah, it was gonna land.
What do you walk in a room like that and go, okay, these are the 3 jokes I'm going to go to? Like, are you like always preparing for that scenario?
So,
if you think there might be the dance monkey dance thing happened, you go, kind of get like the 3 jokes that you're going to go to?
Well, you get yes and no. You get insulted. First of all, there's an emotional response. It's like any other profession. You like. You meet somebody and it's like, they're not going to say, Doug, well, teach me a front kick. And you're not going to be on an airplane and go, well, teach me the snatch. But that is somehow the expectation in, although I'm sure you guys get it too. If you talk to strangers and they go, oh, you're in fitness. I got this thing. I've been on a thing for 2 weeks. And well, how do I lose my, and you're like, okay.
It's usually like, my back hurts. What do you think it is?
Right. And then, so,
I have no idea, dude.
So it's the same thing. And at a certain point,
I just make up some bullshit. You just don't.
Your chakras are misaligned.
Yeah, you need to rub some,
I like that.
Some salt on it. Maybe some fish oil. Some topical.
Rub fish oil. Topical fish oil. It's always that'll end any conversation. Topical fish oil.
This guy's full of shit.
Go home, smell like sardines and shit.
Totally. So, I think that the stand up what it taught me more than anything with fitness and what my endeavor is ultimately as a coach is to remind people how rich and important the moment is, and how important it is to undulate your emotional experience with your physical practice. Because, I see a very myopic sort of vision to the physicality, especially in our world, the metrics of CrossFit, the metrics of high performance. And we got to measure everything, which I very much as an algorithmic programmer appreciate. But beyond that, like, the physical is only just such a small portion.
I think it's the least important. Least important part.
And so the context of a proper training program is as a coach become increasingly more significant to me. And I realized that through all my years of sport, all my years of coaching, all my years of stand-up, the lessons were like, look, there are times where you go up on stage and like Joe Rogan was working with his guys. Okay, we're going to just produce content. You got to put up new material. You know that odds are it's going to lay an egg, but you got to get it up. You got to provide it. It's like a baby. It's you got to get it on its feet. You got to get it walking. And then eventually it'll grow up to be a teenager and then a strong person. And
so if a joke totally fails, you don't give up on it?
Oh, never.
You're
I
like,
never
I
gave up.
just tweak this little thing. And
well, I saw him last week with Joe. He told a joke and everyone was just like, he goes, all right, well, that one didn't land. And
totally.
He made a joke out of it.
But you could tell like he was. And I've heard him talk about this. He's going to go change it, or maybe he just tosses that part of the bit out. Yeah.
And sometimes the setup can be the exact same, but like somebody at a table their wedding ring hits the glass, and that small little ding, even in a room full of 300 people, changes the setup, because that ding hits a memory for every single person. And so you have all these different levels of intellectual conversations going on 300 different minds, right? And so that changes the trajectory of this exact same timing that Joe might deliver that joke.
Wow.
So it's a very subtle, unique experience.
So every time you get on stage, it could be the same bit, but it's going to be delivered in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and to answer your question, Mike, like, would I have a set list? Well, I got to a point in my career where I loved freestyling. I had so many bits that worked. I had a reservoir of material that I could choose from, but I love like going into the audience and improving a bunch, but then like drawing back on my bits that were anchors to my, to what it is I did. And I love like creating that sort of dynamic show, especially the last 2 or 3 years of my career, just being really creative on stage and just sort of going any direction. And, time drilling and doing that, from coaching, like when you first start coaching, you've got your plan and like, you're not going to deviate from that. And then after 10,000 hours of coaching, you've seen every single thing.
You go through your level 1. This is how you, step 1, step 5,
right,
step 3.
Right. And so then you eventually just you're able to go, okay.
Then you coach.
Then you coach.
Yep.
Then you coach.
So to tie in one of the lessons you talked about earlier back to sport, you were saying that some of the comedians or any comedian rather, that can be disconnected from the outcome of a show. And sometimes he has a good show, sometimes he has a bad show, but he never really gets down on himself. He kind of just takes the good shows and says, hey, that worked and that's fantastic. Right. Takes the bad shows and says, okay, I can learn from these experiences. Yep. And he's kind of emotionally neutral about all of it.
That's it.
To tie it back into sport, I remember when I was first starting MMA, I was at Team Quest in Gresham, Oregon, super famous gym where like Randy Couture, Matt Lindland, and all those guys started training. And Robert, the guy who owns it, I was talking to him during practice one day, very kind of offhandedly. He said, you know who I can tell is going to be one of the best fighters here? And I was like, nope, I have no idea. Teach me, tell me. I want to know.
Right.
And he said, the guys that can go for a move, totally miss it, fall flat on their face and get choked out, and they roll over and they start laughing.
Right.
And then they try it again. And if they miss it again, they totally don't care. They just keep trying until they get it. And whether they get it or they don't, they're just having fun. They don't care.
To dovetail that point, we were talking before the show, I'm really good friends with John Hackleman, and he's taught me that by his own experience several times. Like the level of emotional neutrality that he has and what he tries to get out of his fighters is the same thing. And great martial artists are that way, is that they're not tied to the outcome. They're just constantly in the process of learning. And that is, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu is really clever. I remember having a conversation with Tate Fletcher about 10th Planet.
The beard.
I got to meet him yesterday.
Yeah.
It was as epic in person.
Oh,
as
dude.
it was on,
I
on TV.
I tweeted that. I want to hang out with him.
Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. But one of the things that he talked about, especially with all the 10th Planet guys, is that they want their opponents to know everything that they do best, because only that is going to force them to be their best self.
Oh, yeah.
And as a philosophy, as a martial arts philosophy, and listening to Tate, talk about that, and then, watching Hackleman, because we work camps through the years and stuff, just watching him work with the fighters, work with me, like, there's so much to learn from emotional neutrality and not get tied to, the end result. And if you talk to John personally, he's like, I got knocked out. I've knocked a bunch of people out. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't matter. At a certain point, it doesn't matter. People make importance off of the results, but really it's about the process.
That's what, in business and coaching and fighting, it seems like there's something magic about going in knowing that eventually you're going to get hit right in the fucking teeth and it's going to hurt so bad. You just embrace it going in. And then also that attitude of like, everything that's best about me, I want to share as openly, as freely as possible. Right. Like, I just get better. What's best about me now gets given away, and I'm only going to make better shit.
Right.
And have a better outcome because of it. That's in such stark contrast to people who say, everything I do well, I have to hide because I don't want anybody knowing my secrets. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right.
I got to keep all the best shit to myself. And then if you really want to know what I think, pay me for it or whatever. And then the fascination of, if I like an athlete in the gym, they miss one heavy lift they should have gotten, all of a sudden I'm a worthless piece of shit. They don't expect to ever get punched in the mouth. They always expect that I'll just fucking be what I want to be.
Right.
And when things get painful, they get scared or they get nervous. Or they start looking around the room thinking, everybody thinks I'm this weak asshole now. No, you just missed the snatch.
Right.
Relax,
Yeah,
dude.
it's just
one competition. This means
totally.
fucking nothing.
Right.
You know,
and that's, I don't know how you guys feel about that. That concerns me a little bit about, like, as much as I love our culture and our community, it concerns me how emotionally wrapped up we get into our workouts. And I'm the first person to be vulnerable to that. And I'm a coach who has I've been coaching since I have a lot of tools, to deal with this, but I'm so susceptible to it myself. And so when I see it in athletes and when I see it in others, just that the anger and that self-judgment, I'm just like, oh man, like, that's not the point of this. It's somehow we're getting tied up in something that we're creating manufactured energy around.
Do you know any athletes that kind of like come into it fresh and they're just like that? They're going after the journey right off the bat, because my experience has been, especially with myself, is, you got to like fail like miserably. It's like you almost have to hit rock bottom as an athlete. Like, I am, I fail over and over and over again. And then you finally go, well, if I could just learn to enjoy the journey,
right,
this would be a lot better life. Right. And so like, I don't know if I know any athletes that didn't beat themselves to death for the numbers or for the win, and that, they got to that point. No one walks in and goes, man, I just enjoyed the journey.
Right. Well, I I think, like, sometimes fighters there's a vulnerability in fighting because you get the crap knocked out of you all the time. And so
humbling sport.
It's a very humbling sport. And I think, the barbell doesn't, a few cases, but the barbell doesn't really fight back. It just tells you if you're moving wrong.
Right.
Dude, the worst time I ever got knocked out was to a 14-year-old kid.
Are you serious?
When I was like 26.
What did
worst I ever got knocked out.
What did he land?
I don't know. I didn't see it coming, so I got knocked out.
That's horrible.
But really, my coach comes up to me and says, "Hey, you want to box with this 14-year-old kid?"
Yeah.
And I was like, looking at my coach like, "Why?
Setting
Why?
me up.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? What do you got planned?"
Yeah, young
and
Mike Tyson.
I go like a brand new 14-year-old kid that needs some help, or like I'm going to the Olympics soon, 14-year-old kid.
Right.
And he goes, Olympics. And I was like, yeah, but still, he's 14 years old. I'm 50 pounds bigger than him. I'm taller.
Right.
I'll be all right.
Right.
And I was all right until I got knocked out.
Right.
Humbling.
And you're right, Mike. There is, but on that side, and to your point, like, there is part of that where you need that drive. You need something.
Yeah.
You need something to chase. But I think the balanced perspective is one that understands that pursuit, but also understands not to stay too much in the positive or the negative. Like, I hit the result, I'm me,
right,
or I didn't hit the result, I'm an asshole. Like, at some point, like, if you can create a little more emotional neutrality to that, I think your experience as a human being will be deeper, longer, and healthier.
Yeah, they're letting those results of their competition define them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I watch that, as a former, my girlfriend's she's a current Olympian. She ran for Sweden in last Olympics in the 4x4 team for Sweden. And, she's over in Europe right now getting ready to race. And, track is like very punitive. If you're not hitting times, it's just like, it's so direct. It's not, there's nothing subjective at all about it.
You can't hide from
nothing at all. You're just exposed. And so the psychology of a track athlete, having been one, and then also watching what, people at her level do, is just like, it's mentally exhausting, Yeah. So, word.
Let's take a break real quick. When we come back, we're going to learn how to tell jokes.
All right, welcome back to Technique Wad. I'm Doug Larson with the Barbell Shrugged podcast. This is video number 7 on the squat series. I'm going to give you 3 fun variations to help you get stronger on your squats. All right, today I'm going to give you a beginner, intermediate, and advanced variation that you can use on your squats. Level 1 is going to be a tempo squat. Level 2 for the intermediates is going to be a pause squat. And then level 3 for the advanced athletes is going to be a 1 1/4 squat. So that doesn't mean that only beginners should do the tempo squats, only intermediate athletes should do the pause squat, and only advanced people are allowed to do the 1 1/4 squat. But that's how you can kind of think of them. The tempo squats look like this. I'm gonna face out just for this video. So tempo squat basically means that on the way down, say I'm front squatting, on the way down maybe I have a count of 4, and so I'd be here 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I could come up as fast as I want. A pause squat would be similar, except I would go down under control, but however fast I needed to, and then at the bottom I would hold it for maybe a count of 4, maybe a count of 7, whatever you decide to do, and then come up from there. And then the 1 1/4 squat, I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna come halfway up, and then I'm gonna come all the way up. So I'm doing a full depth, and then I'm gonna come up just a little bit, and then I'm gonna train that bounce again on the way up, okay? The tempo squat I like for new people. The reason I like it is because on the way down, new people tend to get out of position, and they, you know, their knees will be wobbling in and out, they'll drop their elbows and whatnot. And so it lets them slow down, and it lets them think, you know, butt back a tiny bit, ribs down, elbows high, knees out, heels on the deck. It lets them think on the way down, and then on the way up, they're supposed to come up the exact same way that they went down. So it gives them time to think, where they're not going so fast that they're just kind of falling all over the place and their knees are in and out, they look terrible. So I like that for new people for that reason. For the intermediate athletes, I really like the pause squat. As I said, it lets them go down however fast they want to, but then I like how you pause in the bottom position and you have to have that kind of that raw strength, especially if this is heavy. If you're doing like a 1 rep max pause squat, I'm waiting, I'm resting, I'm comfortable in that bottom position. Maybe I'm sinking lower and lower and lower, and then I have to use that raw strength to kind of blast out of the hole and recover. That way, if I catch a heavy clean as an example, and then I land in the bottom in a funny position, or maybe I'm even a little bit out of position and I can't ride the bounce, I'm used to having to kind of grind out of the hole, out of the very bottom of the squat, because I've been doing it in training on my heavy pause squats, which might be heavier than my heaviest clean. So I'm used to grinding out of the hole with heavy weight. That way I get in competition. Maybe I'm trying to hit that next PR. I land a little bit out of position. No big deal. I'm strong in that position, and I can grind out of the hole because I've been doing my pause squats. Okay. Then finally, again, the advanced method that I was talking about today is a 1 1/4 squat. Again, put your feet wherever you would catch a clean, elbows high, and go down. I can kind of get used to using the bounce. Okay, and you obviously wouldn't do that fast with heavy weight. Go down under control. Maybe you go here, you do kind of a light bounce and then maybe a fast bounce, and get used to, and just get used to having that weight on your shoulders and landing in the hole in a comfortable position where you can bounce and not have the weight slide forward, not drop your elbows, not have your toes come off the ground, not let your knees wobble. You're getting used to riding the bounce on both cleans and snatches. You can do all this stuff overhead if you want to. You can do it in a back squat position. I did all demos in a front squat position just because it's easy to talk. But you can use all these same techniques for any and all variations of squatting. So I like for advanced people using that 1 1/4 squat. It trains you more in that bottom position, and it lets you learn how to ride that bounce correctly. That way you can pull extra heavy weight, catch it in clean, ride that bounce and cruise through your sticking point. That way you can have as much energy as possible for when you go into your jerk. So those are 3 easy methods that you can use to kind of mix up your squat routine, where especially with beginners, the tempo squat makes them intentionally go a little bit lighter, and the 1 1/4 squat actually can help advanced athletes actually even go a little bit heavier sometimes, because you're letting them get good at bouncing out of the hole for a 1 rep max front squat or what have you. So go ahead and try out those 3 techniques. If you want more squatting tips, you can always go check out the rest of the squat series. This is video number 7 in that series. So if you want to check out videos 1 through 6, you can go to barbellshrugged.com, click on the episodes tab at the top of the page, and click on Technique Wad. All the videos are in the library. We'll see you another day.
And we're back. You missed the big Zumba conversation we had.
Professional Zumba.
We have this new idea.
Everybody Zumbas.
We're calling it Barbell Zumba, and it's going to be super sweet.
From the makers of Barbell Shrugged, we bring you barbellzumba.com.
Oh, jeez.
Who would coach that? Of the 3
We
of you?
derailed ourselves.
Who would of the 3 of you?
I knew there was something we were going to talk about.
I would do it
Well,
because
there's
it would look ridiculous on camera. It'd be very funny. Me just dancing. What do they do in that shit? What is Zumba? The dancing
It's
thing?
like hyper salsa, but it becomes very athletic.
Oh, you want to see me in a Speedo doing salsa in front of a HD camera?
with a bunch of Brazilians. That would be amazing.
Welcome to Zumba. Go ahead, Mike. You're going to teach us how to tell jokes, I think you're going to lead off with.
No, we're not going to do that. I just like to make shit up. see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's the best part about podcasting is that like it just inevitably things just sort of organically fall into place. Which that's a cool thing about podcast. It's not forced. You know what I mean? It's just like cool. If it lands there, it lands. Cool. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, because you're gonna just post one again next week, and it'll be that one might be better. They're like that Kane guy sucked. Totally. Thank God I can go back and listen to the other 150 episodes.
Totally.
I know there's one guy that was way better than that. I'll just listen to that one again.
Right. Yeah, that's with I used to be on the Wadcast podcast, and Eddie Eft. Did you guys meet Eddie?
I got to meet Eddie as I was walking in on Friday. Yeah. We just happened to be. He was standing next to John Wellborn.
Oh yeah, we
and
met
John
him.
Obviously got my attention. I was like, "There's a giant."
John is
and then there's the funny looking guy next to him. Yeah.
I wish he was on Game of Thrones. I mean, I feel like he's big enough
to
be on the Game of Thrones.
Oh, absolutely.
He could be the giant.
We talked about fighting and all that. I made a point to somebody yesterday. I was like, maybe talking to my wife or somebody. Like, a guy like that big, who had been paid professionally for years and years, millions of dollars, to keep freaky people away from the person he didn't want them to get to, using fast hands and ultra fast feet and superhuman strength. And the guy's 330 pounds and how tall is John? Like 6'6" or something, probably at least.
He's jacked too.
Just not like you, like not a human like you're a human, a different kind of human, like Game of Thrones shit. Dude. I was trying to make the point. Like, I wonder if even like if against a guy like that, if you brought a guy who had really good jits, really good striking, what would you do against a guy who was just got paid for so many years to keep people away from other people?
You just gotta watch people. You just gotta watch Dan Severn fight.
But not. This is even different. This is not just a big hulking guy who can crush.
Dan Severn was a fucking Olympic wrestler. I mean, it's not that much different, and he's fairly skilled. And then you saw him go against Royce Gracie. And it looked like Dan Severn's winning the whole time, and then he taps out, and you're like, "What happened?" Right.
Yeah,
was it like,
I don't know. There's weight classes for a reason.
Right.
That shit matters. It's not the only thing that matters, but it matters.
Thank you, Doug.
It definitely matters when there's concrete involved, and you're not in a padded room. The
good thing about alignment is you're also trained. You can viciously attack when you're supposed to attack, but you can also retreat and perfectly defend and sense when somebody's coming after you too. Like I guess it's kind of like it's a different kind of like the wrestling skill. But I'd really be fascinated to see him. He's not going to do it because I imagine he is not always feeling so great. I mean, he got fought battles every 7 years. But I would love to see a scenario where a guy would match up against John and see what would shake out. Those hands, those feet.
It's amazing. Like, you're a big guy, but I'm you next to him is going to be.
Oh yeah, well John he's just a different kind of person.
He's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah, actually, on that note, I said that weight classes do matter, but whenever they do an absolute class, like at a jiu-jitsu tournament, it's always the middle-sized guys that win. It's like the middle bigger. It's never the biggest guy. It's always like the middle biggest guys.
Kind of like CrossFit a little bit.
170, 185. Yeah, kind of like CrossFit.
Middle range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely a weight that I feel like where I'm most athletic.
What do you weigh at?
I weigh like 185, 190.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, I feel so. It's funny, like when I first started CrossFit, I was like, OPT was sort of the model. Yeah. You know what I mean? And Amundsen was sort of like on the bigger side, and then it's just like how this thing has so explosively morphed. And how guys have just they've added that 15, 20, 25 extra pounds, and
they're way more fit.
190, 195, 200.
I mean, the weights are heavier than they were years ago.
You need that against
That's
that bar.
another myth we talked about with Dr. Gabba. Another myth that's fleshing out now is you can be really big and muscular and just be more and more and more fit because surprise, that's where all the action happens is in the muscle. Usually big muscular guys are big and muscular because they just lift weights and they don't do fitness shit, but these big muscular guys are doing lots of fitness stuff.
Yeah,
it's better and better and better.
It's freaky.
They run a marathon, they snatch over 300 pounds.
It's crazy, man.
That's nuts.
It's crazy.
That's a new kind of thing.
It is a new kind of thing.
So you did leave the Wadcast podcast. You started your own podcast.
Yeah.
And what's the goal of that?
So an old mentor,
the Positivity Project.
Yeah, Positivity Project.
Yeah.
So it's got kind of a long name. It's Positivity Project Master's Program. And so the ultimate intent is to follow a question that a mentor had once asked me. And he asked the question, he basically said, listen, your actions can contribute to the world or they can contribute to the misery of the world. What are you going to do? You can contribute to the joy, you can contribute to the misery. And so the thought with the Positivity Project was with that question in mind, answering that over a long amount of time with content. And so within that was to talk about talk with people about how they optimize their experience mentally and emotionally, to basically leave a small, over time, large toolbox behind for people to like get little gems. And so to improve their lives. So as we start, it's primarily sort of a CrossFit fitness niche program. I have a lot of friends outside of the CrossFit world, business people, actors, professional athletes in different sports that I intentionally intend to get on with the idea that let's answer that question with content. And then I overlap that, you know, at my gym with my training methodology, which earlier we were talking about context and how the physical is just a small portion of any training program, any true training program, I feel. And so like I'm really dialing in the methodology of my training program. So the ultimate objective is to kind of synergize these two things content-wise over time. So if I've got a balance of scientific evidence that can corroborate, listen, I've over years helped these people, and here are the retest models 3 times a year, and here's our product. This is what we can deliver. Then simultaneously layer onto that like the context of the training program. Like then I've left my mark as a coach. And so the podcast is just an extension of that, to take that a little bit further, to talk to people who are really good at what they do, to find out it's not so much about the numbers, but how is it experientially that you get to the place that you get to and that you stay in, and what takes you out of the moment, what keeps you in the moment, and when are you most alive. So that's that's a principal sort of thing, to provide content in both of those areas. So the podcast serves that, my training template and program and gym serve the other. And so together, like again, over time, the big picture is like, let's put these pieces together and go, here's like 10, 15 years of work to kind of support what I've been believing all these years in my lifetime of experience.
Yeah, you talk to a lot of gurus, and a lot of times they have like these theoretical templates and concepts, and people are like, kind of bringing that context in of like, this is an example of how this works with this person. And people can like fit it into their lives and learn from that probably a little bit better.
Yeah. One of the things, you know, being around CrossFit for as long as I have, the big concern that I have as a coach is that the fitness triangle that Glassman originally put together has in many ways been inverted. You guys know the triangle I'm talking about. You got sport at the top, weightlifting, throwing, then you got gymnastics, metabolic conditioning, and nutrition. And so what I thought about is like, listen, what if we add another layer to that? Because in my experience, what I've seen in the last, especially 4 years, is that thing's flipped. At the bottom of the pyramid is like this sport, and people are so focused on the sport of it. And they're like, okay, we got to get on the barbells, we got to lift. And then I'm looking at people going, you don't have good body control. And then so they haven't even dealt with the gymnastics or the ability portion. And then it's like, is your heart and lungs actually capable of oxygenating your blood? Oh, by the way, you're just following a nutrition program that a professional athlete follows. I would like to see your blood work and see how your kidneys are actually looking. Yeah. So as this triangle is inverted, in my view, it's concerned me as a coach. We've gotten so far away from a long-term picture of health and wellness. And so at my gym, what I said is, look, let's just add another layer. And underneath that nutrition layer is context. And the context of which we train is just like a sport. You've got your practice days, your competition days, and your mental toughness days. Now, I created an algorithm, test-retest model. And of the movements that we train, of the movements we test, we train those movements. And we come up for 3 months in different combinations, all these different movements, and then retest. So at the end of that, we're going into our second year of doing it. We continue to produce amazing, profound results in very everyday people, because CFLA is not a gym of fire breathers. And my interest is helping everybody be fit, not necessarily like elite level athletes. Right. So then if I'm talking to them with deeper context that's relatable to them in their life, where I'm saying to them, hey, your 5:30 class is your team. You're coming to practice. Just like any other sport, on practice day at CFLA requires that you work on your skill, you work on your virtuosity, you work on your humility. You're not going at 100%. You're going at reduced percentages, both in the glycolytic and phosphogenic phases, and you're just really demanding that they pay attention to the basic skill of the movement. On competition days, it's about, okay, this is what CrossFit has traditionally looked like, that high intensity thing that yields the positive adaptation. But we don't do that day in, day out. Because, my belief is that the market for creating sustainable CrossFit requires that gym owners have a membership base that stays. What I've witnessed in years, of doing this is you got an 18-month window to a 3-year window of sustainability for the people before the people just go, fuck it, I'm out. Why? Either they're tired, they're injured, or the thing that I found most consistent, emotionally exhausted.
Yeah.
You've got coaches coming in going, intensity is a variable. You got to dig, you got to provide that. And it's just like, got it. By the way, I have a mortgage. I just had a spouse yell at me. My kid is pissed at me, and I've got an old sports injury. Now you're fucking talking to me at 22 years age and scolding me? I ain't having it. Talk to me like I'm an adult.
Right.
And so my thought is, like, any successful team I've ever been a part of, and I've been part of many, isn't like, we got to extract the best of you every day, and then when you're done, which is 18 months from now, I'll find another. What I'm looking at is like something entirely different. Look, we want you here for a long time.
You brought back the Run DMC style now. Yo, son. Look,
son. Seriously,
let's
son.
not get it twisted up in here.
Seriously. And like, let's create a sustainability model that looks like a sports team. If you're going to practice and that's 60% of your training volume, and you're just thinking about it as practice, you're suddenly letting yourself off the hook of, like we talked about earlier in the show, going for the metric. If you can release that emotionally, you might actually improve your skill.
Yeah.
But if you're only going for the metric, guess what? Not likely that you're going to listen to your coach that's on your ass for whatever sort of line that's off. So you get an opportunity to repeat those basic movements over and over and over. Competition days, it's a very different emotional experience. Competition days constitute 30% of my programming. That's where you tell the athletes, Barbell Buddha's coming in. He might not be the swiftest guy, but he can lift. So it's...
Whoa, who are you calling not swift?
Well, I actually don't know. That's
you see his fucking feet in action, man.
Twinkle toes. You are going to be the Zumba instructor. Barbell Zumba. So like, the thought is how do we create the context to compete? How do you not only compete against yourself, but against your teammates and classmates? Now it is time to go for a result. Now it is time to go for a win. That, to me, reflects life. You practice a lot. Every once in a while, you go for it and put all your skills together in a game, which is basically a traditional CrossFit workout. And lastly, as I mentioned to you guys before the show, like a huge influence to me was Coach Mark Devine. As a martial artist, as he's my coach, I call him coach. Like, what he reminds me of is this mental toughness thing where you have to go beyond yourself and be your most excellent self in service to people around you. So that's my vision for a training program and template, is to use, a lot of the grinders that the grinders that you'd see in SEAL Fit. They're longer, the 30, 40 minute, and they're pretty abusive. But I only allow that in the programming 10% of the time for that reason. It's not sustainable. However, the benefit of that is that you're really tapping into like the emotionality and the communal aspect of being on a team and thinking of yourself in what he calls other orientation. So we try to think about, like, not just when you're in pain, our job at CFLA is to bring the people up around you.
Yeah.
So then you get oriented towards the other energy and elevating it.
It's all past fitness and performance into humanity. Because if there's one thing humans are, it's highly social creatures who can't really be their optimal self without pain.
Right.
The whole history of our species is one of these tight moments of like joy and abundance and music and revelry, contrasted sharply against loss, pain, uncertainty, fear, and that it sounds good to get that out of your life, but you can never escape the fact that you're always going to be this creature who needs one and has to expect the other to be in balance. Like, without that pain and acute suffering, you have no idea of what it is to appreciate the person you're suffering with in the water. You can't dial into the fundamental humanity of what you are. That's what a gym setting, that's why the community is there. It's like you have to suffer a little bit. You can't suffer too much.
And that's exactly what we've tapped into, is to try to balance all these like emotional components with just the people are paying for value. They need to know that their program works with efficacy. So we're doing that. We're providing that hands down. Like, it is, like, as far as I'm concerned, like the most profoundly effective model that I know of for like an everyday gym. it's really hard to coach it outside of the walls or scale it because you need the coaches who understand how to coach the context of what it is we're doing. Otherwise, it's just a training program. And if you don't have good eyes on you, it's not going to make much sense. So the real heart of it is, hey, we're having a broader conversation. We want you to be your best physical self. We want to see positive adaptations across the board, multiple domains. But we want you to be able to sustain this emotionally for your lifetime. So we want you to come in day out and practice with your team. And, I'm real proud of we've got great retention. And and because I think a lot of it has to do with this, because we're having a conversation that's not just a workout on the board. What we're talking about is, all right, we always do the circle. We circle up at the beginning of the class. We're like, okay, here's a practice day. It's a competition day. We do our call outs. We do mental toughness day. Let's bring it up. Let's elevate together. And so there's different emotional qualities that resemble our lives as human beings. And so I want a training program that resembles the experience of being a modern human, not just a unidimensional 100% intensity. It's just like, I don't know if life exists like that. You got to practice things to get really well to provide the intensity. So, that's really what the training program at CrossFit LA is about. And again, my long-term vision with the podcast and with the training template is to sort of unify these things just by talking to brilliant minds, people who are really exceptional at what they do. And then at the same time, provide enough science to corroborate that, because it is theoretical. I mean, all of this is theoretical. All of what we're doing is theoretical. This thing is so new. We're all great minds. We're super well educated, but it only time will tell. Like, is this sustainable?
It's rattling off down the road at a faster speed than we can really we don't know where we're going with it.
Crazy. Yeah. I can't keep, I'm always prided myself on being able to keep up with top ideas. But right now it is unlike anything I've ever experienced being in the fitness business my entire life.
It's only accelerating now that you get another layer of the MPGL coming in, where you take the thing that's still rapidly accelerating and you put it in another even rapidly accelerating environment where there's different pressures and different time domains and other influences and a different structure where things get more and more intense and more rapid and more just different.
The team aspect where people actually have to operate as a team.
As a unit.
Yeah. It's not testing the fitness of the team.
Right.
It's testing the team as a team.
It was interesting. I went down to Miami to call a couple of the matches, and I called San Francisco twice, not thinking that they were going to win the basic preseason sort of thing. Yeah. And I was looking at the team kind of going, well, they've got some good players, some good tools. But then their ability to work together as a team, and they didn't have some of the other teams that I believe had a little bit more strength and speed on the barbell, for example. Right. They were making mistakes. They were guys who had 300-pound plus snatches were going to the bar at 225 and failing, not really sure that they were going to be able to make the lift. Then, by the way, they were chewing up 8-9 seconds to set up. Meanwhile, a girl from San Francisco just got through 3 barbells, right? Scored those points per second,
beat your ass.
Yeah, and a lot of that's the coach. People are looking at the athlete and like, why are they making that decision? They're like blaming the athlete. I'm like, the coach is right there, totally making that call.
He's calling a play, basically.
And so, he's calling a play, and it's probably more on the coach than it is the athlete at that point, as long as the athletes are listening.
Right.
So this is, again, a whole nother twist to that whole scenario is coaching is actually becoming involved during the competition.
Right.
It's not something where you coach someone all year and you put them on the field and say, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually where the coach is
critical,
strategically involved and tactically involved just with the athletes.
Yeah. Really, really interesting stuff. It was fun. It's going to be really fun to see where all of this, we were talking about it just off air, and I have no idea where all of this is going. I would think that I'm competent enough to predict, but I'm also mature enough to understand that.
But there's my point would be just kind of what you've been echoing the whole show is that I think there's wisdom in this situation and a lot of optimism if you just say, who cares where it goes? Right. Look at what's acutely happening. Smart people coming together to do a brand new thing. In an organized way.
Right. Everybody
wants to see it succeed who's involved in it.
Absolutely.
If everybody just lets go and just gives it all they've got, it's going to go in an awesome place. There's no need to try to guide it. There's no need to worry about everybody's so obsessed, MPGL thing. Either it's going to be fucking huge, this thing's going to be awesome, or this is the stupidest thing, what the fuck does grid mean? There's two groups of people who are reaching out and projecting over the end result.
Totally.
Meanwhile, my point of view is, hey, look, man, it's a cool new thing.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
There's smart people involved. Awesome. Everybody's got a positive attitude.
Right.
No one's trying to force anything. They're trying their best to organize it acutely in a way that makes sense.
Yep.
And if all that's in place, it's going to go in a direction that's cool.
Right.
So if that's the case, which it is, wink, 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 nudge, nudge, here's a fucking hint to everybody. It's going to work probably because acutely it's working. It makes sense. But if you just let go of the thing and embrace it and see the opportunity, then everybody can win with it. That's just how awesome opportunities happen. Right. Let go of the thing, let it be what it's going to be, give it your best, and cool shit's going to happen.
It's great to see the opportunities that it's providing for athletes. You know, I mean, like just to see everybody. I mean, people are so stoked. I mean, there's multiple outlets for if you're committing your life to this fitness thing. There are multiple outlets for it. You know, you can chase the games, you can chase the grit. I mean, there's like, you can make a living doing this stuff.
I hope to see in like 10 years' time underneath some little girl's Christmas tree a big fucking Alico barbell. Right next to a backpack and a football or whatever else a kid might get in an idealized Christmas present situation. I want to see that time where it's like, oh yeah, we saw that thing last year, went to the championships, and Dad got me a fucking Alico barbell. This is awesome. Right. And she goes out in her front or in her backyard, she starts practicing snatches. What is this? Like that could be the future of fitness. That's something worth pursuing. Man.
Yeah, I can see that actually.
Yeah.
I can see that.
I think it is interesting, like the people getting caught up whether it's going to work or not. It's like how's that even affect you? Who cares?
Right.
You're asking the wrong questions.
Just watch it and enjoy it. Why worry about? They're like, oh, but it's not going to work. I'm like,
yeah.
Who cares?
This is your projection.
Why are you letting that affect whether you enjoy it or not? People are like, I don't want to get on board because it's going to fail. I was like,
I was talking with
doesn't matter.
You got a fucking crystal ball in your pocket? What are you talking about? You don't know anything.
You know, I was talking to an affiliate owner yesterday who was very opinionated about it. He was just like, I don't know if I would watch, you know, something with a bunch of failed games athletes. And I was like,
you're carrying some baggage in this discussion,
I'm
friend.
like, there was so much projection in that statement. And I was like, man, these are extraordinary athletes. And
by the way, that's not even fucking true.
It's not true.
Signed with the team. The guy was in the top 5 all fucking week so far or whatever.
A, it's untrue. And B, it's a different sport. And C, like these athletes are remarkable. I mean, just the cycle speed. And like, it's funny to watch actually some games veterans move rather slowly on some of the races, you know, and you get these sort of bodyweight ninjas or these barbell, you know, badasses moving, and their cycle speeds is unlike anything the elite CrossFitters are doing. And you're kind of going, man, there might actually be a limited window for the best CrossFitters to actually make it in this thing.
I've had conversations where I'm like, yeah, CrossFit's training people to be slow, and they're like, what? I thought it was for speed. I'm like, no. It's like there's a lot of sports that train you for speed. CrossFit's not the one.
Right. Yeah. When you set it in contrast to, you know, fucking NFL or NBA, where everything is like, boom, bang, like you can't imagine. Like the biggest thing I learned when I got up to the higher levels of sport, like football in my case. Like when I went from high school football to college and I got around guys, like I started training for combines to try to, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I was not going to the NFL. I was trying to sneak in the back door of the NFL to be a long snapper actually, because I could actually long snap all right.
Okay.
Which you look between your legs and you hit a guy with a
That's
chest
an important
with a football
skill,
from 20 yards away. You hit him right in the chest as 2 giant guys are trying to run you over.
Right.
It's a skill. It's a niche.
It's a niche
Occupied
skill.
a niche. But I got to be around guys who like 6'8", 380 pound guys who are running as fast as linebackers and stuff. Guys who are just not human. Right. When you see that kind of force and speed, you go, there's a lot left. A lot more experimenting we can do with a barbell to make people, to take this thing that's rapidly changing and make it more. I like the intense and the power and the speed.
Me too.
The sort of NASCAR, rumped up, version of this.
A lot of the guys in the media booth for the grid were guys that used to work hockey. So like one of the fastest sports in sport.
Super explosive.
And they're like, dude, following the grid is way more complex and way faster than hockey. And I'm sitting there going, following the puck. They're like, yeah, man, because there's just so many things happening, and then it's all over in like 3 or 4 minutes. They're like, you got to pay.
But they're also incorporating all that Tron-like fucking tech into it, where you're gonna be able to sit down with a beer in the crowd, yay fitness, and be able to see a guy jumping rope or lifting and be able to immediately know here's where they stand in this competition.
Right.
You can dial in and see, okay, I'm seeing progress. This looks enough like other sports where I can tell what's going on. Right. Despite the madness, despite the fact that they're calling plays with barbells. What in the shit? This is so different. But I think those are the fascinating aspects of it. And just to fucking nail the point home and reiterate it, that experiment only feeds back into what exists.
Right.
It's not like they run away and they go, sorry, all you other CrossFit motherfuckers, we're going to take our big giant bag of money. See you soon. Thanks for the help. No, all that experiment, all the data from it, all the wins and losses, everything that comes out of this feeds back in the CrossFit. It'll make it stronger. Because where are these people going to go to get training advice? Where are they going to go to lift and train for these things? They're going to go to CrossFit gyms.
People moving better.
Motherfucker, they're going to go to CrossFit gyms. Everybody's going to win from it. It's going to be fantastic.
Fire up, Buddha.
Yeah. I mean, just take your eye off the short-term acute ball, which is, I got to have all my answers right now. I got to know how it's going to work. I'm on board. I'm not. No, just let it happen. It's going to be good for you. Trust me, man.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. I'd like to see, there are elements of our community that are very opinionated, and, I have no problem with people expressing that, but I also I'd love for our people to think with a little bit broader of scope. Like we don't know. And this, I think the people moving and moving well and firing up other people to do fitness is only going to help society.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you going to go to the first grid match in New York?
I won't be there. I'll be in Sweden. Actually, I'm taking the first vacation that I've taken in. Dude, the last true vacation I had was in 2000. I went to Italy. So I haven't.
14 years ago.
Yeah, because all those years of stand up and all these years of coaching, it's just been like,
wow.
I mean, I'll have like two.
You're not going to know what to do.
Things. I know. I'm not. I don't.
You're gonna be miserable.
I don't stop that much. That's my like as I coach people. One of my biggest things is like, you need to take it easy. You need to slow down a little bit. And then most athletes who know me well enough are like, dude, kettle black, like you're worse than anybody I know. I don't stop, and that's. But I'm really looking forward to it.
So it's gonna take you 3 days to break through the I'm going crazy on vacation,
right?
And then by the 6th day you'll settle in,
right. And then it's time to go home.
And then he'll go home. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm going to Sweden with my girl who I don't know if she'll be done with her track season then or not, but it's like her family's like she's from a badass crew. So there's like an archipelago that we're going to that is in their family. Like I didn't even know what an archipelago was. It's basically an island. I'm just like they have their own island in Sweden. Like awesome. So we're gonna go to that and. So it'll be good for me. It'd be really, really good to just stop for a little bit.
Very cool.
So I won't be in Madison Square Gardens. I'll be in Sweden.
Bummer.
But I will be in LA calling the match on the 31st of August, and then I'll be in LA calling a match on the 14th of September as well. So yeah, I hope. Are you guys going to be out there then? Or
no, I don't think we're going to make any. I'm going to make the first match.
You're going to some other.
I got a bunch. Yeah, there's about $1 million other things going on.
Yeah.
Make the first match and the last match. And the last match is supposed to be at the beginning of October.
Yeah.
Or supposed to be Mandalay Bay.
Yeah, Mandalay Bay.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are omnipresent. It's like people go, Barbell Shrugged. And then you're popping out of different places.
We manifest.
I feel like it too. I'm never home.
We drink
seriously.
We manifest where you are. We drink tequila and coffee. We podcast. We take all the California 10 chicks and we get out of there before before we even fucking know we were there. I love it, dude. We're gone like a vapor.
I love it. I love it.
All right, Kenny, where can people find you?
Okay, really easy. On Twitter at the Kenny Kane, on Instagram at the Kenny Kane as well. Also, you can find me at CrossFit Los Angeles. If you're ever in the LA area, please swing by. Check us out. Come by and I coach. Well, my schedule's always changing, but I coach 5-6 classes a week there at the gym, and that's our home. All the stuff that we talked about, you can come and experience and
awesome
me coaching you. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us.
And iTunes for the podcast as well. Kenny Kane's Positivity Project. Big shout out to my co-host Allison Trushite, who's a national class Olympic lifter.
Oh, sweet.
She is a badass. She's total badass. So anyway, Allison Trushite, owner of CrossFit Synapse up in the Valley. So if you're up in the Valley of California, of Southern California, check her out there.
Excellent.
Sweet.
Thanks.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrug.com and sign up for the newsletter.